If you're pregnant right now and you're scrolling at 2 a.m. after another appointment left you feeling anxious, or maybe your child's already here but they're struggling with colic, reflux, sleep issues, or sensory challenges, this video is actually going to change everything that you thought you knew about where these problems actually start. Here's what most parents usually don't ever hear: that the modern American pregnancy experience, with its constant monitoring, testing, fear-based messaging, it's creating chronic stress that doesn't just affect you, it directly programs your baby's developing nervous system. And this is not about guilt. This is about understanding what happens so you can truly understand what your child actually needs. And here's something that puts this all into perspective. Your great-grandmother probably had 4 or 5 prenatal appointments during her pregnancy. No routine ultrasounds, no genetic testing, no glucose tests, challenges with the horrible drink that you have to drink. And today, in modern pregnancies, you're having 12 to 15 appointments, multiple ultrasounds, various blood draws, glucose tolerance tests, non-stress tests if you're labeled as high risk, constant monitoring, which is sending a very clear message that something can be wrong at any moment. And in 2017, there was actually a study published in the Development of Psychopathology that tracked mothers and children from pregnancy through the age of 6. And the findings are quite astonishing, and it states that babies born to mothers with high prenatal stress showed a nervous system that was 22% more reactive at 6 months old, and these babies also showed an 8% lower self-regulation capacity and greater risk for anxiety, depression, and behavioral problems as they grew up. Let me repeat that for you. 22% more reactive before they even left the womb. When you experience stress during pregnancy, it's not just emotional, it's biological. And you have what we call the HPA versus the HPG axis. Your brain has the hippocampus or the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, which is then going to stimulate either the adrenal glands or the gonads or the reproductive organs. And when you're under this chronic stress during pregnancy, you favor the HPA side, so the hypothalamus to the pituitary to the adrenal glands. This response is going to release cortisol from the adrenal glands. So your HPA axis responds to stress by releasing cortisol. In theory, short bursts of cortisol are normal, but chronic elevation of cortisol from constant appointments, test results, or when you're being told, we need to watch this, maybe baby's measuring small, they're on the lower end of things, that messaging is the problem. In your placenta, which is amazing that our bodies can create an organ every time we get pregnant that supports our baby, your placenta has a proactive or protective enzyme that actually converts active cortisol into an inactive form called cortisone before it reaches the baby. And the problem lies where when mothers are under chronic stress, it actually overwhelms this protective mechanism. So active cortisol isn't being converted into the inactive form. It's going to cross the placenta and it's going to reach your baby's developing brain. So your baby's baseline normal is being programmed based on your nervous system state. So if you're under chronic stress, your body feeds off of chronic stress. And think of the umbilical cord. So most women understand that the umbilical cord is how our baby gets nutrients, but it's more than just nutrient delivery. Think of it as an electrical power cord and not just a feeding tube, we would say. It carries signals from your nervous system directly to your baby's developing nervous system. And when your nervous system is stuck in fight or flight mode, those signals transmit to baby. Your baby's brain structures then form in stress-adapted patterns. So we have the amygdala, which is the fear center in the brain. That's going to actually develop larger and more reactive. And then you have the vagus nerve, which originates in the upper neck region. It's going to form with low tone, which will then affect regulation of the heart, the lungs, digestion, and emotions. And all of this isn't just genetics. I feel like we come across a lot of providers that blame a lot on genetics or bad luck. This has nothing to do with genetics. This is actually nervous system programming during the most critical developmental window. So I want to dive a little bit further into what happens to a baby's brain when it's developed or programmed in a stress response during pregnancy. So prenatal stress affects specific brain structures that are going to control everything from emotional regulation to learning. And babies that startle easily or they struggle to calm down is usually because the amygdala that we just talked about is overreactive. Learning and emotional regulation suffer because the hippocampus shows reduced volume. Controlling emotional responses becomes harder because the prefrontal cortex connectivity is altered, which lies in the front of the brain here. And then we talked about the vagus nerve also, and that nerve is responsible for calming down the entire body. And under chronic stress during pregnancy, a baby's vagus nerve will actually develop with low tone. And neurotransmitter systems for serotonin and dopamine, they establish stress-reactive patterns. And so your baby is actually entering the world with a nervous system that's already stuck in what we call sympathetic dominance, or that fight or flight mode. And here's the thing. This progression pattern, it's the same neurology that we see throughout the course of a child's young years into teen years into adulthood, but the labels change constantly. So the underlying issues for all of these different labels and all these different health challenges in kids all come down to the same type of progression pattern in neurology. These signs don't improve with time, they just evolve. So the same nervous system dysregulation that caused colic at 2 months old becomes constipation at 6 months old. It becomes sensory sensitivities up to about 18 months old. It can be ADHD that appears around the age of 5. Anxiety emerges by age 10. The neurology is not changing. The medical system just gives it different names as your child grows up. And they don't grow out of it, they grow into it, unless the nervous system is addressed. And that's how you have this path forward, is addressing the foundation, starting with the nervous system. That is the underlying cause to a lot of these health challenges and issues that parents are going through on a day-to-day basis that we see in the office chronically. If your child's nervous system is stuck in fight or flight mode from prenatal programming, their body physically cannot digest properly, it can't sleep deeply, it can't regulate emotions, fight off infections effectively, or calm down after being upset. And you can do the dietary changes. You can add in different supplements. You can try therapies like behavioral therapy. You can follow all of the programs out there about sleep training and occupational therapy, all the things. And all of these can help, but if the foundational nervous system dysfunction isn't addressed, you're building on a cracked foundation. Neurologically focused chiropractic care addresses subluxation created by prenatal stress. And we see where that dysfunction is at using insight scans. So they will show exactly where sympathetic dominance exists and how suppressed the parasympathetic system really is, that rest and digest system, that rest and digest side of the nervous system. The adjustments are so incredibly gentle. There's no more pressure than checking ripeness of a tomato when it comes to these babies and infants. And once that nervous system interference is removed and neurological function is restored, the body's healing capacity emerges. And so I want to end with this. Whether you're still pregnant, you want to support your baby's nervous system development, or your child is already here but showing signs of dysregulation, the path forward is the same. Address the nervous system first at its foundation. The perfect storm is what we call this cascade of different challenges and labels as they grow. Perfect storm started usually before birth, but understanding what really happened is the first step towards giving your child what their nervous system actually needs. You can head on over to our bio. You can DM us. You can schedule directly with us here in Colorado Springs, New Ridge Chiropractic and Wellness with myself, Dr. Kelly, or Dr. Josh. And our whole team would love to help you understand what's really going on and what you can do about it. Your child doesn't need more labels. They need answers.